Hi, we're live.
All right, welcome everybody to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Friday, January 16th, and we're continuing to work on H527 and act relating to extending the sunset of 30 VSA 248A. And we are here with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. So I'm Representative Kathleen James from Manchester.
Richard Bailey, Lamoille 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington. Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Jared Corey, Washington 2.
Graham Kleppner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Great, and in the room.
Dana Reed Perry, the Crossing Group.
Serena Knight from BNRC.
Great.
I'm Greg Faber, work for the PUC.
Claire Buckley, Leonine Public Affairs for CTIA.
Josh Hanford, Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
Great.
And Samantha Sheehan, Vermont League of Cities and Towns.
Great. Josh or Samantha, or who's testifying?
I am.
Great. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Zoom. Zoom. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Samantha Sheehan, the Municipal Policy and Advocacy Specialist for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And I'll share my screen. I'm sharing this. Emotions. There we go. Okay. So if you remember, we were here probably about a year ago, discussing ground-mounted solar and the certificate of public good process before the PUC for that type of renewable energy project. And so today's testimony is going to be really aligned, maybe a bit of a refresher about existing municipal authorities related to planning and zoning and how elected leaders and appointed leaders at the municipal level interact with the existing Public Utility Commission process for the siting of telecommunications infrastructure. Just a reminder, VLCT is a nonpartisan nonprofit established in 1967 to serve and strengthen local government in Vermont. All 251 municipalities in Vermont are a part of VLCT. So certainly all of the places where you live and the communities that you serve in your districts are a part of the VLCT organization. And all municipal officials are members. So that is elected, appointed, and professional staff. So part-time, some are lifeguards, police officers, select people, members of citizen commissions, including DRBs and planning commissions, as well as mayors. We have 8 mayors in Vermont, are all members of VLCT. We offer members educational workshops and trainings. We're about to launch a big 3-year technical assistance programming for the newly passed CHIP program, Community Housing and Infrastructure. We also offer confidential legal guidance to municipal officials through our team of municipal law attorneys. We have the Vermont Municipal Data Project, which generates a lot of important information about what's going on at the local level, which we share intermunicipally, as well as with state partners and other organizations. And Josh and I and some members as appointed serve on a long list of legislatively created committees, task force, and working groups in order to represent a unified municipal perspective in the sort of ongoing policy work of this building. I think relevant maybe to this conversation, here's some information about kind of the size and scale of the communities we serve. So there are 251 municipalities. 8 have mayors, 2 are what's considered a strong mayor. only 66 have a city, town, or village manager. And 73% of municipalities in Vermont have a population under 2,500. Most communities, most town governments are run by just a gritty, hardworking group of volunteers, many who serve in more than one official position on behalf of the town. I'll skip over the rest of that for now because they'll come back up when we talk about plans. We go through a biannual, or every summer before a new biennium, we go through a policy setting process where a number of committees made up of VLCT members develop what we call our municipal policy, which are basically a long list, 13, 15, 17 pages of policy, which we as an organization support legislative action on, or leadership from state government. We then, before a new session, sort of refine those into a much shorter list of our highest priorities for that year. And here are some things from that really long list of our adopted municipal policy, which was approved by all present and voting members at the 2025 annual meeting. So at the very first page of our adopted municipal policy, we have a list of guiding principles. One of them is, and as far as I know, has always been, to support local discretion to pursue sustainable housing, economic development, recovery, resiliency, including substantial deference to municipal planning, zoning, and siting decisions. So the preservation of what we call substantial deference is an important guiding principle of how VLCT approaches policy work. We also have under, I think relevant to this discussion, under our adopted public safety policies, we have to ensure statewide access to affordable state-of-the-art telecommunication services that benefit public safety and first responders and builds the economy. And so, of course, first responders are our members. They're EMS, paramedics, police officers, and they rely on functioning telecommunication systems in order to provide that really critical life-saving public service. And then under our land use priorities, we have to base development decisions upon adopted municipal plans and to use adopted regional plans as guidance documents. So that's a way of saying we who represent the municipal governments look at the town plan first, the regional plan second. So all municipalities in Vermont have broad regulatory authority over land use decisions. The place where that is derived from in the state law is the municipal plan. So basically, if you adopt a municipal plan, the law says you can then adopt zoning and permanent bylaw. If you have zoning and permanent bylaw, you can then adopt ordinance, which is the local enforcement tool for zoning and bylaw. There are broad preemptions in state law to this regulatory authority. One you're very familiar with, which is renewable energy generation, also cannabis. I'm going to put agriculture aside because that's sort of open for discussion following a recent Supreme Court decision. There are also a number of preemptions that say a municipality may regulate this thing, but up until the point at which it would interrupt its intended use. So that's things like hospitals, places of worship, state-owned buildings and facilities, etc. Municipal zoning does not apply to telecommunications infrastructure. What the municipal plan and the local zoning and bylaw as adopted does provide is clear guidance for the elected officials and appointed town officials who engage the CPG, Certificate of Public Good process.
People have some questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to clarify where the line is between what municipalities are empowered to do without going through a charter change that has to be approved by the legislature. There. You could go over that just a little bit in more detail.
Yes, so some municipalities have achieved unique regulatory authorities over certain types of development or land use decisions. You may have heard of one kind of even famous nationally, which is Burlington achieved through charter change and approval by the legislature and the governor, a unique authority to regulate thermal heat for buildings. So then Burlington was able to adopt an ordinance which limits the type of fossil fuel powered heating systems that can be used in certain types of buildings. I think in Burlington, they currently say over 50,000 square feet. And at the time of replacement, you have to switch to electric with some practical ways out of that. So that's a unique authority that only Burlington has.
Does that extend to the energy usage of the building? The energy use,
Like how, like
energy
BTUs?
use intensity, I guess is a metric for, basically how many BTUs per square foot.
It doesn't limit how much energy the building can use. It does.
It's just about the source.
It's about the source. Again, with some like qualifiers to that, like, when you walk in a building and it blasts you with hot air, or certain types of kitchen equipment. There's like,
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very specific regulation, but
It's not the efficiency of the building. In other words, it's just the.
no, but Burlington also has weatherization ordinance, and other municipalities do as well, that in certain ways regulate energy efficiency in new buildings.
Well, but I'm sorry to be so specific about this. Do you know whether this special exception that you mentioned about Burlington's heating equipment covers those other ordinances?
It's a different ordinance.
It's a different order.
But Burlington has, I don't know, maybe there's some like nerds in the room that like to learn about these things.
We're all nerds in this room.
Yeah. All municipalities can set fees. The fees cannot generate income. The fees can be punitive if they're derived from the ordinance. So in the case of the thermal
That's a general.
heating for building, that's a general rule.
Okay.
So then Burlington got this unique authority to regulate thermal heat. And they have, as a part of their ordinance, a penalty, which is an impact fee. So the builder of the building can choose to follow the ordinance and go the electrification route as a heating solution, or they can choose not to and to use a fossil fuel system. And there are reasons to do that. Sterilization in healthcare settings is one, in which case they pay an impact fee. And then the ordinance also says, what does the impact fee go to? In Burlington's case, it goes to the fleet electrification. It also goes to low and moderate income programs to help those folks electrify. But so that's sort of the complete circle of life of municipal authority over development broadly. You can plan for the future. You can plan in a specific way what types of buildings at what density and intensity can go where and why, how wide should the streets be? Do you need protected bike lanes? Is parking required or not required? That zoning and bylaw. And then you can enforce. You can have through ordinance enforcement systems, including permit requirements, inspection requirements, and punitive fees.
And all those things are zoning and particular to municipality. Municipalities have the power to create and enforce those, and that those don't involve charter changes.
Correct. Except for in the case of the preemptions, telecommunications and renewable energy are preemption.
I wanted to get back to that. So even if you have all that in place, telecoms, which is what we're focusing on, is preempted.
Correct.
Okay.
That is under the authority and oversight of the Public Utility Commission with this sort of path for municipal input, which is a certificate of public good.
Okay.
I've I'll skip over this. We've had a lot of conversation already, but this just explains like who does this stuff at the municipal level. And I think it's important to know it's not the legislative body. The legislative body has to take the final action to adopt the municipal plan, but it's developed as prescribed by state law, beginning at the citizen commission level. In most communities, that's the planning commission. There's some exceptions to that where they're called other interesting things. If we use Burlington, for example, their sort of electric commission, I think, is actually called the Electric Light Board. So there's different names for these types of citizen commissions, but they're non-elected officials who volunteer, are appointed, and they begin sort of the hard work of setting forth the community's vision and local regulation for the future. Then the legislative body acts and there's state oversight in every scenario. The planning and or zoning and or bylaw goes to the appropriate place in state government to be reviewed. I think you learned about, for example, the municipal utility rates, right, go to the PUC. Those are governed by the PUC. So what is the municipal role then in the 248A process or the certificate of public good, specifically for telecommunications? This is sort of boldly paraphrased from the law. This is not copy and pasted from statute. But this is basically what it is. The municipal bodies, so the appropriate municipal panel will say it's the planning commission, and the legislative body will say, in this case, it's a select board, will receive notice from the applicant, the person seeking to build the cell tower, 60 days prior to their going for the CPG. At that time, those legislative bodies, those municipal bodies can host public hearings and meetings and receive public comment on the proposed project. And there are open meeting law requirements that say how long an action or a meeting must be warned for and how many opportunities the public has to engage in those meetings. But really in the 60-day period, a sort of practical limit would be like probably 3 public meetings for each of the body, and then a 4th that they could fit in with action. But they would have to warn the action at the 3rd meeting, if that makes sense. So it could be 1 meeting, it could be 4, but they would certainly have the opportunity to warn those meetings and have the public participate in them. Also at those meetings, they can require the attendance of both DPS and the applicant. That's a shall in the law. And then there are other additional notices received by those same public bodies related to filings of the certificate of public good, modifications, or waivers that may be sought, depending on if or when those things happen. The municipalities are also notified, along with other statutory notice requirements to other parts of government. The municipality also has a right to appear in the CPG process at the PUC, and they may request DPS to retain certain experts. So if concerns arise through the local process at the local level, that the municipality feels the PUC should understand better, they can request that experts be retained by DPS. This is the balloon test thing. This is like how the town would request the balloon test.
I have some questions. I just want to make sure I really, and I know we've received a walkthrough on this from the PUC, and I'm just still trying to make sure I understand how it plays out sort of in the real world. So the company's required to notify the municipality. And is that a letter that arrives in the mail or an email they get?
No, I don't know. Does anyone in here know? Did they mail it? I would assume it would be an electronic communication, but maybe
It's
both.
electronic filing.
Yeah,
Typically,
it would probably be an electronic filing. I would,
Like to the town manager or to the chair of the select
the
board?
select
Well-
board and the planning commission.
Okay,
it's required to go to the select board and the planning commission.
okay. And then, and this may be, so you're the chair of the planning commission. You get an email, says, hi, I'm X company and we want to put up a tower in your town. And, no.
Just to clarify a little bit, we have rules designed around what's in that advance notice.
Yeah, they have to notify also of the municipality's rights.
And there's
In the
certain specific
process.
things they need to include in that. It's not
That's right.
just a letter saying, hey, I want to build a tower. It's,
I wasn't trying to be flippant, and
No,
you
no.
talked about what was in the letter, I remember, but I'm just trying to boil it all down. So you get the notice. And it goes to the chair of the planning commission, and is the chair of the planning commission required, you said opportunity to hear public comment and warrant action.
They're not
That
required.
optional, or is that mandatory?
It's optional,
So
but optional under 248A. Separate from that, there's open meeting law that requires all public bodies that are non-advisory to deliberate in public. So if I'm the select board chair of the town of Hancock, that's where I live, and I receive this notice, in order to decide what action to do, it has to be discussed at the meeting with my fellow select people, right? So there's not an explicit requirement under 248A, but the select board at that point could do nothing, and then there would not be a meeting or a public discussion. Or if they're going to do anything, there has to be a public meeting and a public discussion because of the other requirements of Title 24.
So the chair, and I'm sorry to really I just want to make sure I really understand. So the chair of the planning commission could then go to the next meeting. And so there's a couple folks sitting in the room and maybe one person watching on YouTube.
Mhm.
And say, oh, we got this notification. We have to decide what to do. Do we want to? And if the folks sitting around the room at that time say, looks good to us, we don't want to do anything, then is that it?
Well, if they had warned an action 15 days prior to that select board meeting, then they could vote to take that action. Someone could motion to do whatever, to hold a public hearing. Someone could motion to, but the action would have to be warned for them to make that decision. Also, I'm not an attorney, but
Yeah, I'm not trying to.
but this is like, so you see what I'm saying? So it wouldn't just be like, hey, does anybody know about this thing? Yeah, there's something we should do anything about it. That's not like a legal way that select board to operate, right?
So it has to be warned.
It has to be warned, the materials are posted, the discussion is had, and then there could be a motion and there could be a vote on the action. And the action could be any of these things here. It could be to direct someone that works for the town, if there's a planning director, right? We actually direct the planning director to do these tasks in order for us to consider this in 2 weeks at our next meeting. Or we direct, like they are the general managers of the business of the town, right? The select board, the legislative body, the city council. So that is the venue where if they chose to warn a town hall on this project or ask a member of the select board to go talk with the abutters, or they choose to warn an action that they are recommending at their next select board meeting, right? Like that all happens in the public meeting. Same at the planning commission level.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that? Unless I missed this, but it sounds like what you're saying, the select board had to take some action. If when they receive notice of proposed projects, they have to do something. Do they have to, does it have to be an affirmative thing? Let's say they don't want to do anything. Let's say, yeah, I want to, we're going to build a tower. That's great. We need a tower. Do they have to take a vote on that, or can they just?
I don't think they do. I can double check with Art. If they choose not to
They don't have to.
Oppose it,
communicate to DPS,
Or take any action.
request. Right,
Yeah.
like there are these actions that they can take. They can require DPS to come to a meeting. They can require AT&T to come to their meeting. They can seek information that's under their authority already for further discuss. Like, to do those things, that has to be done publicly. It has to be warned, posted. The meetings are available. The minutes are available. The recordings are available, like us.
Right.
If they are not going to engage the certificate of public good process, I don't know if they have to do anything. But they're not the only people notified. I didn't list out, like, abutters are notified as
Right.
well.
Right.
Mhm.
So there's also the next slide, which is substantial deference. So if the select board chooses not to, or the planning commission, or both, choose not to further engage the PUC process for the certificate of public good, there's still the substantial deference requirement, which does refer to the municipal plan. So even in the absence of
If you have,
action at the local level at that point, right, there's 200 municipal plans. So if there is a municipal plan, then the substantial deference applies. This is copy and pasted because it's that important to us. I didn't want to put it the wrong way.
Well, I guess then the question is, does the PUC then engage with town officials on the town plan, or do they just go by what's written on paper?
My understanding of the CPG is that the RPC must certify consistency with the municipal plan.
Oh,
So it's the other professional planner from the region will look at. So if the project's proposed in Hancock, Two Rivers out of Quechee must certify the project proposed in Hancock is consistent with Hancock's municipal plan. That's my understanding.
This is only if the town gets advance notice of this process.
The town must get advance notice, 60
So I
days.
thought they didn't have, I thought they weren't necessarily.
Under 248A, they must receive, and others. I don't know what they are because I don't.
we
But-
had, I think the PUC provided us, I know we have a list of everybody that has to be warned, that we heard that in testimony. From Greg, I think.
Yeah, would you like to know who?
Yes.
Notice, so town, of course, regional planning commission, the town planning commission, the select board and the town planning commission, right? A&R, DHP, Department of Historic Preservation, Department of Public Service, of course, all the adjoining landowners will get notice. And I think that's it.
There's other agencies.
Well, the DHP, A&R,
Yeah.
DPS, AFM, I don't think that they are a required party, but I think that's it. But the other agencies, and again, that's just the advance notice. And then 61 days later, it's a minimum of 60 days. So potentially on day 61, the applicant actually files their application with all the same people. And then the actual comment period begins.
Mhm.
Okay.
And if there's modifications, I think it's a 15-day notice
Right.
within 15 days of the modification.
That's true.
So I guess before I get to the punchline, I'll pause here and I don't know, point out, caution, whatever. Folks tend to use the word town interchangeably with community or people or Vermonters. Same thing with municipality, right? Like the project proposed in Hancock was, you know, the concerns of the town were, the concerns of the community were, whatever. We use it in the legal sense. There is a municipality corporate. It is the local government. The actors of that local government are only the elected and the appointed officials. And so concerns may be raised by a number of parties or stakeholders. Those concerns may vary. And the elected officials and the appointed officials on the planning commission must hear those on balance and then make a decision. And the way in which they engage or don't engage with the certificate of public good process, just like through the adoption of the municipal plan or other local regulations, that is the formal action of the town, right? So I know you've heard from AT&T and in other testimony, this is I think a great example of that, of the telecommunications project proposed in Granville. The planning commission and the select board had meetings back in 2021 and chose not to oppose the project at that time before, and then it was moved and there was sort of a second process. They also took up a telecommunications ordinance at the planning commission. It failed on like a tie abstain vote, like 2-1. So the ordinance was not adopted, but it was considered, noticed, warned, discussed. There was public comment. So it went through a planning commission process to consider an ordinance, did not take action to adopt the ordinance. And then they went even further. And after that, the select board chose to warn an advisory non-binding question on the town meeting day ballot. And there was a townwide vote for a non-binding question. I tried to find the exact words for it, but I couldn't. But that went in favor of building the tower. So that was the town's position, right? The town government, the public bodies given the authority in this process by state law, the planning commission and the select board for Granville took the position of allowing the proposed tower to go forward.
But the non-binding advisory vote,
Was in favor of the tower.
and that became which one was given substantial deference then, I
The
guess?
plan, the municipal
The
plan.
plan.
Yeah, the municipal plan gets the deference. So VLCT supports H527 to extend the sunset of 30 VSA 248A for the siting applications by 3 years to 2029. I wasn't sure if I wanted to say this, but whatever. In other areas of the law, the word used is appropriate municipal panel. In 248A, it's planning commission. So I just put that out there. I don't want to like open some can of worms that you're not interested in getting into, but I think as you're taking up this bill for the sunset, maybe you want to clean that up and make it consistent with all other parts of the law. Because like I said, it might be the appropriate municipal panel might be called the planning commission. It might be called something else. Town by town.
What if it is called something else?
Then it-
Does it
that's
go
why
to the
we-
appropriate body anyway?
Yeah, in land use, right, in land use law, in local land use processes, the word used in other parts of Vermont state law is appropriate municipal panel. That almost always means planning commission, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they're called the planning and zoning board. Right, which they do the same thing, they carry the same authority under state law, it's just a different official name of the public body.
Rep. Howland?
With Vermont League of Cities and Towns, said they support this H 527. Did you poll all your members, or is this a executive decision by VLTC's management or whatever organization governs your body?
Great question. So remember, so back at the beginning, I said we go through a member-driven process that develops our municipal policy for the next biennium. Every town gets a vote. Those were adopted in October of 2025 unanimously at the annual meeting. And then Josh and I, operate under the auspices of that adopted policy. And we have as a guiding principle in that policy, to advocate for substantial deference. I don't know.
Okay, that, thank you. The department did a survey recently, at the request of the legislature to gather community input from individuals and towns. And one of the takeaways in the report was that, municipalities are confused about what substantial difference actually means in 248A. Have you been getting that kind of insight or feedback or?
Josh, did you hear the question?
I did.
So those questions typically go to our MAC, we call them MAC, our municipal attorneys. We don't hear, that's confidential legal advice. But MAC does regularly report to us top issues and concerns by topic. Like we're getting this month, we had this many questions about open meeting law, this many about elections law, this many about municipal ethics law, this many about town highway budgets, whatever. And in that way, I did not hear that is a regular concern, point of confusion, or a thing that comes up.
So in this space, Josh Hanford from the League of Cities and Towns, the official policy, which is broad, may not speak exactly to that or your exact question, but it's ensure local input and control over siting and permitting of energy projects, telecom projects, including decisions about building close to where the energy is and used. So they want to be considered. Whether this process is the absolute best or not, I think is very much open for debate, but they don't want to lose this as a way to provide input without an alternative being discussed for something else. I think is the best way to put it, our position.
Was there also do you have a reading on whether you would support eliminating the sunset altogether and just having 248A be the process?
We would not oppose eliminating the sunset. We understand, I mean, it's nice to be here now. And there's good outcomes of this sort of good hygiene, right? Of bringing the discussion back and bringing the parties involved in to engage the legislative oversight process. So we also don't oppose extending the sunset.
Okay.
Yeah.
No position really on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So it seems, having served on a select board for a while, that
A lot of boards in smaller towns might not even be aware of substantial deference until someone comes to town trying to study, a project. At which point it's too late because you're working off the plan, correct? Unless the plan adoption happens to coincide with this, but that's, they only get rewritten every, 8 years or something. So
Yeah.
what is it?
8 years.
8 years, yeah. So, I'm wondering if you guys have normal kind of trainings or outreach
Oh, yeah.
about what substantial deference is and, some of the things that happen across the state. And if this is something the town wants to engage in, it should go in your plan. That sort of thing.
So the planning resource is the RPCs. That's who provides the direct, a direct and really high level of technical assistance through the planning process, through the update to the municipal plan. And if you remember back last year when we were talking about backyard solar, I don't remember the number, but the majority of municipalities in Vermont have adopted the enhanced energy plans and a sort of core instruction by the state and by the RPC planners in the enhanced energy planning process is, the reason to do that is substantial deference for siting. And so that definitely is a conversation that happens in the planning commission process. And when the select board and the regional planning commission go all the way through the adoption of the plans. That said, only 200 municipalities have a municipal plan. Many of them are out of date. A lot of municipalities are waiting in line to get their RPC planner, to get their quorum and to go through the plan update. So it definitely happens that a municipal plan becomes stale. And it is also the process prescribed by state law to set forth the guiding document for these decisions as well. It is the process. It is what the select board and the planning commission have in considering the views and the comments of the community, the goals of the project as proposed. They're looking not just at they're not just looking at the telecommunications ordinance, if there is one. They're looking at language in the plan that talks about ensuring public safety and the number of traffic deaths in the last census block and the economic development goals. And should the town be taking actions to encourage remote work opportunities or hybrid work opportunities in town, right? Like they're looking at the whole of the vision of the future of the community when they think about these things and decide how to engage on behalf of the municipality.
Yeah. So the alternative to 248A is Act 250 and direct engagement with the municipalities. Since VLCT supports extending 248A, I assume that means you don't support, and everybody seems to be using 248A. You don't support going back to the 250 and direct engagement with municipalities. Is that correct reading?
Yeah, I don't think we were prepared to answer that question about the sunset here. This is the process that we have now. We want it to continue. It would be fair to also say there are municipalities that wish there was a better process, that they had more say. Whether that was the way to get there or not, we haven't had a policy discussion to say what that is, but you hear occasionally about news stories in communities that are sort of in challenge with different, whether it be telecom or energy sightings, and feel that this process is lacking something for them to engage in, but we're not prepared to take a different position than this at this point.
Is it your perception that municipalities would have more or less leverage under an Act 250 with direct municipal engagement versus 248? You understand what I'm asking?
I am.
I can say we're engaged on questions related to Act 250 in an intense way through the implementation of Act 181. And our members are not, I'm not finding anything in my inbox asking for more Act 250
Yeah,
application.
That's what I'm wondering, whether
Yeah,
it's the Act 250 with direct engagement might be too much.
yeah. And you know what, just in case I tacked this on, which is, so Act 181 creates a process for location-based jurisdiction, an opportunity for municipalities to identify an area that could be Act 250 exempt in the future, presuming they meet a really strict statutory threshold to achieve that. And other areas could be exempt for housing up to 50 units. In other of the location-based Act 250 jurisdiction areas, so tier 2 and tier 3, and under something called the road rule, there would be new location-based jurisdiction that would be triggered by where a development is on the map, not the intensity of the development like we did in the past. The thing that I think this committee may want to know, and flows somewhere downhill from this discussion, is that the current draft rule at the LURB to define development considers utilities.
Say that in another way.
Okay. Act 181 tells the LURB to make these maps and
Right.
adopt them. And it also tells the LURB define the word development. Because the law says development in these areas will be subject to Act 250 review. The areas are to be determined by the LURB. The word development is to be determined by the LURB. The current draft of the word development includes utilities that are more than 50 feet away from an existing road.
Draft being, for me, a really key word. So, I mean, just to opine for a minute here, and I want to do that with you guys here. Act 250 is in a significant multi-year transition.
Yes.
And I mentioned this earlier in our conversations. I think it's really important that towns and people be able to engage in the process of siting cell towers. I think it's important. And I believe equally that this would be a very catastrophic time for us to let this lapse and push the siting of cell towers to an Act 250 process that is cumbersome, that we hear nothing, that we hear complaints about, that is in a major multi-year statewide transition. I think that we would be making a big mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Because, my concern is that I mentioned this earlier, is that we become the state where you can't get a cell tower built. And that is very problematic. So a lot of my questions earlier were aimed at, this is just my personal opinion. Do we just go another 3 years or 5 years and then Act 250 settle out, and the legislature is going to have to return to this down the road? Or is there some limited, thoughtful, very targeted action we could take now to do a better job with municipal notice and public engagement in the in the 248A process? So any thoughts that the league has on that, if you want to get back to us or think about it? Like I said, in my mind, it's very important we stay on a balance beam here.
Yeah.
And if there are ways to, and it was why I was asking so much about, like, what does that actually look like when the town gets notification? As somebody who's an elected official, I'm sure you guys are super familiar with this. We think we're out here warning things and notifying things and doing things, and projects happen all the time that it's too late. It's been warned or it's been done, and folks don't like to hear, "Oh gosh, we warned that. Sorry you didn't pay attention." So I'm just curious at whether there are limited strategic levers you think that we might consider within the 248A process that could improve that without upsetting the apple cart for people who want to engage and providers who want to build cell towers that we all want. This is an economic issue. It's a public safety issue. So I didn't mean for that to be such a monologue.
No, I really appreciate the comments, and we totally agree on the timing part of what you said. We're in this transformative moment when it comes to local authorities and processes for planning for the future at the community level and in how we understand the impact of Act 250 statewide, how that might impact the ability to put up telephone poles or frankly even take them down. Is one of a long list of concerns that we have and our members have as the Act 181 implementation process goes forward. So it is very easy to agree that we don't think this is a time to throw another major piece of infrastructure planning, siting, and construction into that. Cruise ship, which is way out in the ocean right now, right? Which is the Act 181 process. So totally easy to agree with. Similarly, we would not want to like change up. I can't think of a thing that affects municipal planning that we would throw out there right now. Like that's all going in this very intense way right now. All the regional plans are being redone and will be by the end of this year as of last month, and they have until December of this year. You could change the hearings from may to shall. I would say that the hearings should be hosted by the legislative body. I don't think it should be that DPS shall host,
right?
Or the applicant shall host, right? Because in all sorts of scenarios, that never works as good as the town using its normal systems for making consensus decisions.
And we've heard testimony as well. Yeah. Even just that for me, I'm just yakking here. I'm just talking about how I feel. Considering a switch from shall to may. Because my questions earlier were aimed at this thought of like, what if the planning commission decides looks good to us, and then I realize that there are many other entities that have been warned and that have received notification, but maybe the abutting landowners don't care, but everybody who lives half a mile down the road really does care or something. I don't know. So that's it. I'm done. Those are my thoughts.
Good.
I mean, remember the Granville example, right? Like there's news stories about it. There was a lot of process. It was contentious. Neighbors were disagreeing with each other. There were a variety of concerns raised in favor of the project and opposing the project, and the public process unfolded. Oh, a lot. There was a lot of unfolding, there were many meetings, there were many discussions, there were meetings at select board, there were meetings at the planning commission, and there was a vote, town meeting day vote, pandemic era vote. It was an intense time to be talking about telecommunications infrastructure in March of 2021, right? And that's the magic we've got going on here in Vermont, right? We get together, we have hard conversations, and a couple people that we asked to do this really hard work of administering government make a decision at the end of it.
Self-government.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Anybody have?
I know we have a lot on the wall, but I would like to hear from the RPC on this topic, just because of the plan,
Yeah.
their role.
They have a big role.
They have a big role.
Yeah.
And they also have insight from working with municipalities. Wouldn't have to be a heavy lift of more testimony.
And they have energy planners. Towns don't.
I don't want to put you on the spot. Is there an RPC you would recommend that's had particular?
I don't know.
We could get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
I don't, honestly, maybe the PUC could say these are the 4 that have done it the most recently.
Yeah,
Right.
because that'd be great. Because I've done this.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me pontificate.
So Chris, as being on a planning or a select board, my concern is that if it's not a concern, particularly to somebody and no butter raises issue, that the letter may be just administrative. We received an application to place a tower in town, and it's that length of time in the town select board's meeting, and it's done with.
And there's no public meeting.
And well, but there's no yes or no. Would there be a vote to say would it come up to an issue in the select board, or would it just be a administrative issue that we received a letter?
Oh, the abutting landowners all get notified, right? So if
Right.
someone in town
Right.
came to the select board meeting, then it would be a much more of an issue.
But it may be no more than a reading of that we received a letter.
Right.
And then if the butter didn't talk to his butter, and then the 2 or 3 butters down, talk to the guy that's the butter to have them raise it.
Too many butters there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, but
They were required to hold a hearing though.
they may. It's not they may. So
That's what we were just talking about, I think. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
word change.
There's public meeting and there's public hearing. I think
Right.
we all understand that, right? Those are 2 different
No,
legal types of meeting.
can you, I don't understand that. Can you?
So all meetings of what the law calls a non-advisory body. So it's a deliberative decision-making body there's certain types of authority, but fiduciary authority is one of them. All their meetings are public. No quorum of the public body can meet and talk about anything that's not at a duly warned, recorded, public meeting.
Yep.
So any discussion of this topic by the select board would happen at their regular public meeting. A public hearing follows
It has its own warning. It has a
a
different. set of-
different process.
Right.
Yeah. And so for the adoption of zoning and bylaw, you must have a public hearing. It must be noticed within 15 days. No action can be taken at the public hearing. There has to be opportunity for public comment. And in the case of zoning and bylaw adoption, if amendments are made after a public hearing, you have to have another one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just trying to clarify the advance notice. Now, Rep. Howland's saying, or Rep. Morrow, about the letter comes in saying we want to build a tower in town. What was Annette's concern about, getting the, what's the word? The one that had to be done in 30 days, and for people to actually get a public comment. Open,
I can, so for the record, Greg Fair, PUC up. So you got a 60-day advance notice,
advance notice.
the minimum. They have to wait it a minimum of 60 days before they file their application. Once the application's filed, there's a 30-day comment period. That's
To
for
the
public,
PUC.
to the PUC for public comments, for motions to intervene, requests for hearing. That's when the town recommendation and or the regional planning commission recommendation would come in to the PUC. That would potentially start an evidentiary proceeding if we receive requests for hearing. So you got 60 days.
Yeah, and that includes the public. It could be a landowner or somebody.
All public comments, yeah. The adjoiners, let's say you live next to a cell tower, an application or a proposed cell tower, right? You get the 60-day notice, you're thinking about it. It's day 61, you see the application has been filed with the PUC. You say, I really don't like this. I want to get involved in the process. You file a motion to intervene in the case with the PUC through our electronic portal. Or you just file public comments also through the electronic portal saying, hey, I don't like this. Or maybe you like it. Maybe you go the opposite way. You have 30 days to do that. And then once that 30-day period closes, we determine what to do as far as an evidentiary hearing or any other process we need to do at that point. Let's say we don't get any comments. That happens, especially with the small ones. We get nothing. And then we go ahead and issue the CPG. And that's basically how it works. So for the small ones, and most of them are small, vast majority are very small. We're talking about big towers here.
Right.
The small ones, basically, we don't get any comments from the public. And then we can just issue a CPG. But in the case of the large towers, we typically do get recommendations of one kind or another from the town, regional planning commission, adjoiners, what have you. And those need to be filed within the 30-day comment period after the advance notice. During that 60-day period, the town could decide at their meeting to have a bunch of public hearings, one or more. But they also could request that the department and the petitioner show up at one of those or more public hearings.
Which, if I could sort of contextualize that, so the town select board receives the 60-day advance notice and then chooses how to proceed. So let's say it's discussed at a select board meeting. At that select board meeting, an action is taken to host a public meeting about the proposed tower and to ask DPS and the applicant to attend. That meeting happens. And as a result, the select board, for sake of argument, chooses to support the tower going forward and engages the certificate of public process in favor of the project. Certainly someone, at least one participant in that public process would have disagreed with that decision of the majority of the select board. They can then provide public comment directly to the PUC. And correct me if I'm wrong, but those concerns raised in the town's process shall be considered, right? In determining.
Those are the comments we're given substantial deference.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So even if the select board says, as a town municipality corporate, this is our position, all of the comments raised are considered moving forward.
One thing that Greg just said that confused me is the comments are given substantial deference.
The comments of the town and the regional planning commission, yes.
The comments of the town, not the comments of
adjoiners or other public commenters. No, those don't receive
substantial deference. Right. Okay. I was confused by that for a second. Thanks.
Is it okay to ask a couple questions of Greg Barber since he's in the room? Or
I can be, if you're done with me, I can be done.
Greg is willing to be interrogated.
I'm happy to answer questions.
I'm happy to hand it over.
Good stay.
One question is, I wrote down that you are
Greg, could you
supportive.
come sit up?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Come and have a seat.
Oh, yes.
So I'm just looking back at my notes, and I wrote that you are supportive as well of getting rid of the sunset because of workflow problems.
Because of,
Workflow.
yes, it creates a number of difficulties, yeah.
Okay. And you also mentioned that the statute itself could use some tweaks. Is
Yeah.
that something you're going to advise us on? What your thoughts are about that? Should we expect something?
I haven't really thought about that, given that it sunsets every 3 years. Again, it's one of the problems.
Well, while we have our hands in it, if
Yeah.
there are tweaks, we would like to hear what you have to propose.
Okay, I'll think about that. I'll talk.
And I don't remember what my second question was. Well, go ahead since you.
Get in on this now that we're
Now we're
open another can of worms. If the sunset was extended to 5 or 6 or 10 years, whatever, some
Mhm.
other number, would the PUC be inclined to actually do a rulemaking on this and to clarify it?
Likely, yeah. I mean, we already have rules in place by order. We haven't gone through a formal rulemaking. Obviously, we have rules of implementation right now.
Right, okay, so what would formal rulemaking get us, or the process that
What does
we
that
don't
get?
have now?
What does it get for the legislature?
Oh, or
What does it get for us?
anybody, all parties involved, what's the difference between what you have now and what a formal rulemaking process would?
Well, in formal rulemaking, the legislature gets to weigh in.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Can help us that much, but it helps you folks weigh in on the actual implementation of the statute.
That was a dangerous answer.
In the,
I know, I'm being honest with you folks.
in the LCAR process you're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So there's nothing really in the process now under your current rules that you want to see changed that formal rulemaking would enable? I guess that's my question.
No, but there are tweaks possibly to the statute we might suggest.
Okay, that's
all.
That's helpful clarification.
Yeah. Typically, the legislature likes us to go through formal rulemaking process.
Right. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
It's much easier to do it by order.
Right.
It takes a lot less time. And we do have, stakeholder involvement in those processes as well, but the legislature really isn't involved.
Okay.
Your colleagues.
If this were to be allowed to sunset
Mhm.
and it reverted back to the Act 250 process,
Yeah.
would the PUC lose
We're
all?
out. We're out.
They're out of it altogether.
Yep. Yep.
And then it would be, so if it were allowed to sunset, it goes back to 250, then other future bodies of the legislature would have to come back in and tweak something else to put it back under the PUCs.
That's correct. That is correct.
You wouldn't have enough to do if you did that.
I'm gonna retire in a couple of years, so. Yeah, it does. Well, yeah, that's what would happen. We'd get out of it completely. Like I said, we don't think that's a good idea, but that's what would happen.
Well, I think what I hear is that some of the citizens don't think that they have adequate input because there are too many properties away. You don't have to be in a butter to be in the view shed.
That is absolutely true.
And it only, and like I said earlier, beauty's in the.
Well, that's why we try to have a more robust process at the town level. So the town could have public hearings.
The town's the one that has to initiate their citizens in the. town.
Yeah, they notify their townsfolk.
And then I don't know how much when the regional planning boards cross the county lines or the, that.
Right, and the regional planning commission is involved as well. So, try to cover all bases, but what are you gonna do? I mean, this is the same for any project. Large solar project, same problem. The voters get notified. Person who lives a lot over, maybe he has a better view, he's not directly notified. You know, you try to do the best you can, but.
But if that one that's one removed from the thing and he or she puts the comment in, I don't like this,
Yeah.
you ignore it.
Oh, no.
It's public.
Public comments, we look at all public comments. We get public comments from other towns. I've had many projects where we've got hundreds of public comments from a project in Westmore. We got public comments, hundreds from Burlington. Hundreds. I mean, yeah. So no, it's not limited. However you get notice, you can file.
Right. But you're saying you only take preference from the town and the RPC.
No. So the town and the RPC get substantial deference to their recommendations based on the regional plan and the town plan and the town zone. Okay. They get a special category of substantial deference. However, if you're an abutter or a non-abutter and you want to intervene in the process, you can become a party to the case. You then get to file evidence. You get to do discovery. You get to do cross-examination, all that fun stuff.
What's the threshold for becoming a party to the case?
You need to file a motion to intervene and describe your interest in the case, just like any other legal proceeding. And typically it's based on aesthetic impact.
Yeah.
Pretty low bar, honestly.
Yeah.
We should talk about aesthetics.
So, I mean, I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to balance between putting everything up to a vote for everybody to vote on every project and getting stuff done. We all want cell coverage, but if cell coverage, you have to have cell towers. So it's a tough balance, but that's what we're trying to do here, right? Yeah. Corey?
Yeah, and I'll just add, I think this is the process that we tried to make streamlined. You know,
Yes.
we're hearing that term a lot right now.
Yeah.
Because it takes too long to get the things we want.
Yeah. We all want cell coverage, you know.
Right.
Everybody wants to go to heaven, nobody wants to die, right?
But there's trade-offs and we always, as legislators, need to be listening to the public when they tell us they're having problems with the process. So that's what we're doing. But I'm also wondering, because one of the things I heard and read is that the EPUC website itself is a little bit hard to use for some
The
of
website or the portal?
the portal.
Is it?
There's feedback about that in the department's report, and I feel like somebody said, and that might not have been you, that you are looking at revising some of the EPUC functionality. Did I not hear?
Not that I know of, not related to this. There's some internal stuff, but
Oh, okay.
not the outward looking portal as far as I know. I know we changed vendors, but it's as far as I know, it's working. Like I said, I got 200 comments from Burlington in a case in Westmore, so it's working pretty well. If it hits the newspaper, then I'll get a ton of comments on a particular project. So, and we look at those. You know, what more I could tell you.
Any other questions, thoughts? Kept everybody here beyond the hour. We all set? Right, well,
Good.
we can adjourn for the day and the week and go online.
All right, thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.